A very good day to you and welcome to another Working for You program. I am Lesroy Williams. I thank you very much for joining us for our program today. Each week your company is very much appreciated as we continue to bring you news and views in terms of what is happening within the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Again, thank you very much for tuning in to ZIZ Radio, Sugar City FM, and Win FM, which carries this program live from 1:30 to 3 p.m. and tomorrow on Von Radio from 10:30 to 12 p.m. It is rebroadcast, and on Freedom Radio from 7:30 to 9 a.m. Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to be having a discussion on Universal Children's Day and International Men's Day. These are two international days that are set aside in the annual calendar. And of course, international days are occasions to educate the public on issues of concern, to mobilize political will and resources to address global problems, and to celebrate and reinforce the achievements of humanity. The existence of international days predates the establishment of the United Nations, but the United Nations has embraced them, these international days, as powerful advocacy tools. And so two of them we have today. We are going to be discussing issues pertaining to children, and then we are going to be looking at issues pertaining to men. Today I have on my guest, on my panel, my special guest. From my immediate right, I have Mr. Dion Brown, who is a gender field officer in the Department of Gender Affairs. Next, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Then I have Mr. Gerald Connor, who is the Acting Director in the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. Mr. Connor, welcome.
Thank you, Lesroy, for having us. Good afternoon, everyone.
Additionally, I have Mr. Naren Maynard, who is the Supervisor for Child Probation in the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. Mr. Maynard, welcome.
Thank you. A pleasant good afternoon to our listening audience.
It is probably no coincidence that we are having this discussion today, both in terms of International Men's Day and Universal Children's Day. But let me start with Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, International Men's Day is celebrated on November 19th, which is tomorrow, and it is celebrated globally. We hear about International Women's Day as well.
Yes.
What is the significance of International Men's Day, and why a day has been set aside to celebrate men?
Good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you, Lesroy, for having me here to, just address the broader public about International Men's Day and men issues on the whole. International Men's Day was set aside to raise awareness on the issues that men face. And yes, men do face issues too, not just women. We have like male marginalization, we have like male exploitation, boys who are being exploited and being raped. We have male underachievement in high school, secondary schools, and tertiary level. So men do have issues, and it was important for to have a International Men's Day so these issues can be highlighted. Mind you, the International Men's Day also is to highlight the sacrifices, the contributions, and the achievements of men, and men who are out there who are family men who are really working hard to provide for their family, and also men who are serving their communities and the society as a whole. So it's really important to have International Men's Day, and we want to invite everyone to celebrate with the Department of Gender Affairs as we celebrate and we acknowledge, we observe this International Men's Day. So you can join in the celebration. You can call the Department of Gender Affairs if you want to get involved in International Men's Day. If you want to have an activity, do something, just call the department at 467-1397.
Right. It is also a celebration in terms of boys, because you're a boy before you're a man.
Yes, definitely. Yes, you're very correct. So it's a celebration for both men and boys. And coincidentally, Universal Children's Day come right after International Men's Day. So I would just explain to the director of Probation and Child Protection Services that we probably would have to partner next year, because it comes in close proximity of each other, and we see that wasn't just a coincidence. I think it was strategically done.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I suppose later as we go along, we can discuss in terms of the importance of men in the lives of children.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Now, Mr. Connor, Universal Children's Day or International Children's Day is celebrated on November 20th. And what is the significance of celebrating this day?
Good afternoon for everyone out there in the public who is tuned in today, and thank you once again, Les Roy, for having us here. It is very important. This is a very, very important occasion for us here in St. Kitts and around the world, that we celebrate International Universal Children's Day on the 20th. The international theme for this year is investing in our future, means investing in our children. We have a local theme, which is protecting our children's innocence is our collective responsibility, end sexual violence. Now, the World Children's Day was first established in 1954 as the Universal Children's Day. It promotes international togetherness, awareness amongst children worldwide, and improving children's welfare. And that is very important, and both themes speak to what our tasks should be coming out of what that day was established and have been recognized for. And we at the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services highlight this every year and also every day as we go about doing our work. It is very important that we bring sensitization to the public about what we do and about the rights of children. And if we reflect back even into 1874 with the case of Mary Ellis, this was the first case that's actually highlighted and bring to people's attention the plight of children around the world. So, and bear in mind also, St. Kitts was the first to sign on to the Convention of the Rights of the Child within the OECS, which was first to sign on and ratify. So we have led the way in the charge when it comes around to protecting children and putting frameworks and facilities and all of that in place as we go.
All men. The ushers, all men. So really, they put in a lot of work into it, and I just want to thank them for joining with the department to have that special service for men. I can assure them that the men really felt special, that energies and time went into empowering them. So men, we have persons out there who care for you as well. Monday there was the launch of a Mankind Project in St. Paul's. Mankind Project is really focused on creating safe spaces for men in the community. And so where they can discuss their manhood, their masculinity, and issues that surrounds them to, like gender-based violence that they don't normally want to discuss with other men, and so are afraid to, ashamed of, and it's also to create a support network for men. So that was launched with, in conjunction with a group, Moments with Men in St. Paul's. So we want to thank the Moments with Men ministry in St. Paul's for partnering with us and launching that Mankind project. The intention is next year that we can go around St. Kitts and create these different safe spaces for men, that men can go to have a support network. And Wednesday we are here on Working For You to explain, issues around the men and what we are doing as a department for men. And also tonight, I want to put a plug in here where the St. Kitts National Men's Council is having a lecture tonight at 7 p.m., the Old Girls School. The topic is COVID and men. And there is a prominent doctor who is going to facilitate that. Thursday, we have the International Men's Day Awards at the Kuna Caribbean Conference Center. That's the center up there by the Caribbean Credit Union's headquarters. And on Thursday as well, we asking everyone to wear blue around St. Kitts. Just wear blue, wear something blue. If you don't have any blue clothes, get a blue rag, a blue mask. Just have something blue on that day. We're asking everyone, the general public, to do that. And also on Thursday afternoon, we are going to hand over a food hamper to the oldest man in St. Kitts and Nevis, who is Vernon Connor of Soho Village. So, we have to thank Gary's for sponsoring that food hamper, Gary's Fruits and Flowers. He willingly offered to do that for International Men's Day. So we thank Gary's Fruits and Flowers. On Friday we'll be on Frank and Candid. We're having a discussion about raising boys to be men and the importance of being a family man. And that wraps up for a whole week of activities.
Right. Deon, you are the only male field officer at the Department of Gender Affairs. You are the only male, so you must stand out.
Yes.
As a male. So the celebration of International Men's Day must mean a lot to you. Because sometimes when we think about gender affairs, we only think about women's affairs. And at one time, the Department of Gender Affairs was thought to be a department that only deal with women's issues.
Yes, and we are trying to get rid of that stigma, and it would take time for that stigma to go away, because it was women affairs, for a long while. And then it went, when persons recognize that men has issues too, that maybe not the same issues as women, but men do have issues, and the stigma is still there. Even there's a male in the department. I'm hoping that the government will invest in getting another male in there. But I'm just putting it out that there's another male needed.
And that department, of course, Deon, is supposed to really reflect gender balance.
Definitely. If we're talking about gender balance, gender equity, definitely we should have a balance. Not just say, talk, or advocate for gender balance, but really work towards it. So I'm just putting it out there. Whoever the powers that be, I'm just asking for another male in the Department of Gender Affairs.
Right. Now, Mr. Maynard, we are going to touch on what the department is doing to celebrate Universal Children's Day. But before that, could you sort of give us an overview of the department? What the department does and its structure. We have two things. We have probation and we have child protection services. Mr. Maynard.
Yes, good afternoon once again to our listening audience. The Department of Probation and Child Protection Services is basically two units. One, child protection officers, and then the other is probation officers. The probation officers deal specifically with children who have come in conflict with the law, children who are displaying delinquent and deviant behaviors. And the child protection officers are officers who deal with children who are abused, whether physically, mentally, neglected, anything of that sort. So that is what we basically do. We protect children from any harm. We try to assist families in ensuring that they're taking care of children, so to speak. As it pertains to Universal Children's Day, that will be celebrated on Friday. And on that day, the department is encouraging all stakeholders, all businesses, all institutions to wear blue. Blue is the color that signifies the fight to end child sexual abuse. UNICEF came up with the Blue Bear campaign, which I have here demonstrating, and it's basically the fight to end child sexual abuse. So we are encouraging all businesses, all places of work, all institutions, children, adults, man, woman, to wear blue on Friday to signify our fight against child abuse. On tomorrow, Thursday the 19th, the minister will be making an address on the theme as well. We are hoping to create awareness not just throughout this week, but throughout the entire month and by extension the rest of the year. We believe that children are important. Ever since I know myself and growing up as a boy, I've heard that the children are the future, and they are indeed the future. And so we want to continuously create that awareness that our children are important. They need to be protected, they need to feel safe. And I know some people might not take this the nice way or the right way, but children have rights as well, and we need to be aware of these rights.
Yes.
Right. Now, Mr. Connor, the department deals with a number of issues with respect to children. Can you highlight what some of these issues are? But first, tell us, who is a child?
Yes, it is very important that we clarify a lot of things. A child is someone who is under the age of 18 years. Under the age of 18 years. In that regard, and it's very important to highlight that coming out of many conversations where we have the laws that kind of contradicts how we classify certain things, because then you have a child who can give consent to sex at the age of 16, which is very, very important that we need to look at how we structure our laws when it comes around to these things. Many of the issues comes about in terms of also maintenance, the aspect of maintenance when it comes to someone who can give consent at 16, be a child at that age, and having the male to still maintain that aspect of the child well-being. So those are things that have been issues surrounding a lot of things that comes to our department, and even comes around to looking at what Mr. Brown said earlier, Dion. Men need to understand also that the department is not there for the women. We are there to serve everyone who have issues when it comes around to children. So we do not pick out, we do not take sides, we do not, we are all inclusive. Some of the issues that we deal with within the department, we deal with custody issues, we deal with emotional abuse, financial assistance, of course, where needs be, juvenile delinquency, neglect, which basically carries physical, sexual, and also we have cases that comes to us of suicidal ideations by juveniles, teenage pregnancy, of course, and a number of things, but mainly we deal with the abusive aspect of it, sexual, physical, emotional, neglect, all of it. And to highlight something also that in terms of the act that gives us our powers to perform. In the Child Protection Act, and it's funny because Mr. Maynard was the first to ever get this done, where we did a supervision order on a parent to ensure that the parent carries out their parental responsibility through the court. So we do our best to ensure that children are protected and the laws are there for us to make sure that we put them in play to ensure that parents take responsibility for the children that they bring into this world.
Right. Now that's an important point you raised in terms of parental responsibility. But at the very same time, a child is not something in a sense that you own.
Yes.
For example, I can say that I own this watch, or I own this chair, or I own this bed, or something like that. And so therefore, I can do with it whatever I want. It is not in that sense that you own this child, and so therefore you do whatever you want with that child. And we have heard coming up that children must be seen and not heard, and so on. Children have a right to express themselves. They must be heard. And we've also heard that once you're in my house, once you're a child, it almost as though you have no rights within that house. Your rights are taken away. I am feeding you, I am clothing you, I am sending you to school, I am paying for your doctor bills, and so on and so on. And so therefore, you have no rights. And I want some of that to be cleared up on this program. What are the rights of the child? It is important. Children do have rights. Yes, Mr. Maynard.
As Mr. Connor would have mentioned earlier, St. Kitts were among the first countries to sign and ratify the Convention of the Rights of a Child. And that in itself speaks volume. It lists, I think it has if my memory serves me right, 54 articles listing the rights of children. You have a right to education, a right to an opinion, a right to medical assistance. And as it pertains to opinion, I guess that would comes with the age and the maturity of the child. So the parents would have to use their discretion in that regard. But children do have rights. They have rights to a name. Simplest of thing, they have right to a name and an identity. And it's very important for us to teach our children these rights. Not to the extent where children can abuse it or use it to their advantage, but because we would have had instances where children use it to their advantage, But we want parents to be mindful of that children do have rights. They are humans, just like we as adults, and we need to know these rights and respect those rights.
One of the things, talking about men, one of the rights that children have is that children have a right to both a mother and a father. And we have seen in our societies sometimes delinquent men who do not take the role of parenting seriously. And in abdicating their duties, their responsibilities to that child, they are depriving the child of one of its fundamental rights.
Yeah, if I should comment on that, and I don't want to seem biased I don't want to be seen biased in any way, but women do neglect their children as well. It's not just men alone. And one of the things that I have realized in my field of work is that whenever there is a broken relationship between mommy and daddy, it spills over to the child. And sometimes to me it seems as if parents can be very selfish. They are more concerned about their feelings towards each other over what their feelings, how their feelings is affecting their children. What parents need to understand is that their children requires both mommy and daddy in their lives. And there's no two way about it. In my experience, it doesn't matter. They need mommy and daddy. Even if they're living separated, co-parenting can still work. And I find that a lot of our parents in St. Kitts have issues with co-parenting. They're having a hard time co-parenting because, mainly I see because of broken relationship between them. They still hold on to the bitterness of their relationship. And so you find them tug of war and pulling the child, and the child is in the middle. And this affects the child. They may not see it, but it affects the child. I'm seeing cases where a child see her parents fighting, and then the child go into depression. The child started thinking about killing him or herself, start cutting her wrist, and these kind of things. And then another thing is that you'll find children, they're not getting their love from mommy or daddy, so they find it elsewhere. And so that's where you find our young boys finding themselves sometimes getting themselves involved in gangs, and then you find our young girls getting themselves involved in sexual activity at a very early age. And parenting is one of our biggest issues, as far as I'm concerned, and based on my experience in this field of work. Parenting is a very big issue in St. Kitts, and we need to continue to bring some awareness and try to educate our people about the importance of raising our children. It's very important, and it's a big issue. Co-parenting, it's a to me, it's a big issue in St. Kitts.
Right. We have known that the nuclear family has been presented to us by the Europeans and Christianity, of course, as the ideal type of family. However, what we have seen in the Caribbean is that we have seen many family forms that have really emerged out of the motherland, which is Africa. We have seen a lot of family forms where you have the single parent families, you have the visiting relationships, and so on. But what I hear you saying, it doesn't matter what the family form is. The family must serve certain functions.
Yes.
And so therefore the function of not just procreating, because I can procreate, but the family must also serve the function of child rearing, the socializing of children, and also you have that financial element that comes in. Sometimes what you find happening is that you have the procreation and you have the financial element. But the socializing is where we fall down a lot of times.
And this is just my experience and my observation, I find that it almost appears as if parents are now giving their parental responsibilities now to the state. That is what I'm seeing happening right now. So we need to reverse that, because I think that we're heading to that direction, and we need to reverse that, where the states need to put pressure on parents to fulfill their parental obligation to children. I do know some of the children that we have in society today, they, for whatever reason, they have a lot of issues. And I know there are some parents who generally may not have the experience or the support to deal with these children. And so they will be crying out and so on, almost to the extent where they are so willing to give up their children to anybody. You understand? But I just want parents to be aware that the department is here to assist in whatever way we can. And so they can come to our office and speak to any of the officers, and we can provide whatever guidance we can.
Now, Mr. Connor, Mr. Maynard said something, and although I understand what he's saying, I would put a different viewpoint. He said that children are the future, but children are the present that would really shape the future in terms of our societies. And so therefore, the importance of socializing children to contribute healthily to the society, to be wholesome people, and so on. Later down the line, however we raise our children and so on, will affect society, either positively or negatively. Now, what are some of the issues that you are seeing coming to the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services that can affect how a society is impacted negatively or positively in terms of how children are raised. What are the issues and what are some of the statistics in terms of what you are seeing?
The issues that we are seeing coming to the department: physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. Those are the three main focus. And I will also throw in there juvenile delinquency as a fourth. We have to understand that a child does not get bad overnight. It is based upon how that child is raised, the way in which that child, the leniency of which the parents give to that child, the way in which the child is socialized becomes big challenges. And so there, when we say that this person becomes or being delinquent, it did not happen overnight. This is something that have been built up by parents not exhibiting parental guidance, making sure that their children are raised properly, especially socialized, making sure that they're socialized properly. Because if you do not socialize your children properly, they would not know how to carry themselves in society. They would not know what is the societal norms, what is expected of them, and what is needed for them to become law-abiding citizens. Very, very important. And we must take those things into consideration. For example, in last year alone, we had a number of juvenile delinquent cases. We actually had 73 reported juvenile cases. And this was very much balanced between both male and females. So we have to now look at what really is going on in society and see how we can do things differently, how we socialize also as adults is very important, because what we do is what they learn. And how we do things is what they will think as being the social norm, and so forth. Now, and then we go on to neglect. We had, last year, there were 61 reported cases of neglect, general neglect, and then 56 cases of physical abuse, and 44 cases of sexual abuse. And those are just reported cases. So you can see the strain in which our department is placed under, because I believe under Mr. Maynard's unit, he probably have about four child protection officers. Mm-hmm. And this is where now we need to come up with ideas, we need to come up with programs, we need to retrain our future parents and our present and parents that we have now in regards to socializing of how they can be better parents. We know that we have a situation on our hand with this COVID, with this whole COVID pandemic, where things have changed. Families are put under more pressure. The state is being put under more pressure to assist. And we have to be very tactful. We have to be think outside of the box of how we are still going to function and meet these challenges head on with probably meager resources. But we have to get it done. So those are some of the challenges, and those are what we see coming out in society. And we have a tough road ahead, because it's not going to get any easier.
Mr. Connor, what is physical abuse? When I was growing up, and perhaps it has changed somewhat, but parents, somehow, anything that they had in their hand, they could be cooking and they had the pot spoon, they will lick it in your head, or the pot, or when they're going to beat you and you run, they will take up stones and they will fling it after you. They will ask you, well, where you sleeping tonight? Which is really a threat to really, to the child. And where does one really draw the line? You get licked with electric wire, or you beat the child into a pulp, and then you expect the child not to cry. And when the child cries, you said, I'll give you some more, because what is it that you're crying for? Where do you draw the line between healthy discipline and unhealthy discipline?
I'm glad that you asked that question, Mr. Williams. It's because it's very important. It comes back to something that I did mention earlier. If you raise a child in a particular way, it would not come to the point where you have to go to that extreme to beat, mutilate, or whatever to a child. And that's the whole thing. And it always says, do not beat a child when you're angry, because you do not know where your anger will take you. So you have to be very, very careful of how you go about distributing punishment to your children. Yes, we have parents say, oh, the tired talk and this and that. But as I said, sometimes we allow children to go too far, and then we try to bring it back when it's already gone. And that is where the problem comes in. So parents then resort to the last thing that they know is the belt, the shoes, the fan belt. And most of the time when we go and speak to parents, when we get report of these, I give him everything he wants, I give her everything she wants. But probably that might have been the problem of how you got to that point with that child, because you basically gave the child everything they needed. And the child became a way in which, well, even if I do this or even if I do that, I can still get what I want. And we have to be very careful of how we treat our children, and especially as I come back to what we are going through right now with parents losing their jobs. I met one lady the other day, and she said, Mr. Connor, I am so proud of my son. I said, why you say that? Because I said to him, I cannot buy you the $500 pair of shoes because I cannot afford it anymore. And she said, Mommy, don't worry about that. And he was satisfied because of how she raised that child to understand that at one point in time, I would not be able to give you everything you want. Another child would now say, you know what? I ain't like you. I ain't want you around me. You ain't love me because this and that, and you can't give me this and you can't give me that anymore. And that is what we need to be careful of, how we treat our children. Yes, children have their rights. They have the right to clothing. They have their right to food. They have their right to shelter. But we also have to make sure that we are careful in the way in which we raise our children.
So sometimes there's a competition that is basically going on. And a child might see somebody another child wearing a pair of Nike shoes, and they cost quite a bit, and they want a pair as well. But the mother cannot afford and the father cannot afford it. And you know what happens? How do you explain that to the child? And on another hand, buying the child all these things, they sort of think that it's the equivalent of love. This equivalent of love. But love goes much more than just giving people things. I mean, you cannot really materialize love, or you cannot monetize love. You know, giving somebody money, and that is the whole thing. We move away from the model of maybe the father just coming and paying child support, but he has no sort of involvement in the child's life in terms of, you know, bonding with that child, taking that child out, getting that child to know him. And Naren said that in terms of the mothers too, but I think our mothers, in a sense, have been it's fair to say that they have really been more responsible in our society than our fathers, but it probably comes from a warped view of men and child rearing, or a warped view of men and manhood, the important aspect of, bonding with the child and the primary care that is required to raise that child and so on. Dion, these are some of the issues that our men face in our society with respect to children. Now, my question to you is, how can we make a positive difference to the well-being and lives of men and boys? Because sometimes it's probably a lack of education,
yes,
or how they are socialized, why they behave like that.
Yes, I think that, like you said, Mr. Williams, that it probably a lack of positive socialization. And we're talking about making a positive difference, not just a difference, but a positive difference in the lives of men and boys. I want to, before I answer your question, we do have single fathers who are, trying their best and working hard, and they do need recognition. They need to be recognized, because you don't see that every day. We see young men taking the child to preschool and so on. I do see that going on. Maybe it's not as much as the women, but we need to encourage. We need to encourage. When we see these things, we need to encourage them and say they are doing a good job. Lift them up instead of bringing them down. I think it does more damage when we bring down men. And
right.
Yes.
And that is an extremely good point you're making, Dion, because we have to promote a positive conversation about men and manhood and masculinity. It is not all negative.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah.
You have a whole panel of men here.
Yes, and there's a panel of men here who are contributing in a very positive way and so on to the society. And we have to uphold men, exemplary men, so that boys
Yes.
can really follow and other men can follow. Sometimes we don't have enough men-to-men mentoring.
And that's it. What Mr. Maynard said, it was rightly correct when he said that, both a mother and a father is needed in in raising a child. It's very important, both have their roles to do. Some persons look at the men, the fathers are disciplinarian, but fathers can do much more than that. Children do need, especially the girls, daughters, do need their father's love. So sometimes they go out searching for that love and think that older men love can replace their father's love. But it really not so. It leave an empty void in their heart. And so we want to encourage our men to be more responsible, take up the roles as fathers. Also, we want to encourage the women not to put their feelings, put their feelings aside and work together for the betterment of the child. Because we do have some women, some mothers who talk bad about their fathers, put the fathers right in the middle of the tug of war, and then they don't want the child to see the father.
The father worthless.
Yeah, the father worthless, and we hear all of that. They don't want the child to see the father, and one of them say, the mothers may say, the father, dead standing up, some things like that. Whatever is happening between the mother and the father, it should not affect the child.
Yes. And Dion, I think you have a number of men too who are crying out for a man's love. And there is nothing unhealthy with that in terms of people may probably think, something is sissy about you, or you might be homosexual, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I am not talking about that. That is a totally different issue. But at the very same time, if a boy does not have that love of the man in their life, they may tend to have a warped idea in terms of what being a boy is or being a man is. And so therefore sometimes they may gravitate towards antisocial behavior.
Definitely.
For gangs and so on, because they might think, well, you know, I have to be tough and I have to be rough and that sort of a thing. There must be no sign of being weak or vulnerable, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
And basically, you have to be a wholesome person.
Yes, you do have to be a whole, and that's why we said, you know, making a positive difference to the well-being. When we say well-being, we are not just talking about physical health. We are also talking about your emotional health, your mental health, you know, you're finding your identity as a man and as a boy. And the sooner you find your identity, is better for you. And sometimes fathers do help boys to find their identity. Boys normally, you know, search for a father. Of course, they like their mother's love. You know, mothers have been doing a good job. I'm not saying that they don't. But, you know, there's something missing when the father is missing. Something missing in that child's life, that boy life, that girl's life when a father is missing. They don't have to be in the same home, but both father and mother have to be in the child's life. And what you're saying, Mr. Williams, is, you know, we have these stereotypes in our minds about what a man should be and how he should be like. You know, he should not be soft. He should be macho. He should not cry in front of anybody. You know, a man can't let a woman beat him, otherwise he sissy. You know, you get teased. You know, we do have this, and it takes changing a mindset, and we have to start changing that mindset, that attitude in our society, where we can see, you know, well, men do have their feelings too. Men do have feelings too.
Yes. Yes. No, do you think that a mother can father a child? I asked that question because I remember reading some time ago that book by about a Jamaican community that was really written by Edith Clark, My Mother Who Fathered Me. My mother who fathered me. And just in the title alone of that book, it is loaded. It is saying that the father is absent, and so therefore the mother has to make up for the absenteeism of the father. Do you think that a mother can make up for the absenteeism of a father? Naren.
Wow, you really let me think on this. You really made me think on these questions, actually. You really made me think. Off the bat, I don't think so. Off the bat, this is just my personal opinion. As I said, it's just based on my experience and what I said. I don't think a mother can father a child.
Right, because when we speak about male and female, we are talking in terms of sex and in terms what is biologically determined at birth. But when we speak about gender, then we start speaking about social constructs, how you are socially conditioned, and so on.
I mean, mind you, I think a single mother can raise her children and raise them properly. I'm not disputing that at all. But the whole concept of...
If that wasn't the case, then a number of us really...
Exactly.
Who are simply, you know, it's our mothers that were there for us. And are we better for it? Are we worse for it? Are we as healthy as somebody coming from a home where you had a father and a mother? But sometimes you can have a father and a mother in the home, and the child basically has not been raised in a healthy environment either. So it depends on the environment, because the father can and the mother can be married in the nuclear family, but not necessarily in terms of the raising of children, producing healthy children.
Correct. You're right. You're right.
And then you have the single mother households that may raise, the mother might raise a child, or the father alone might raise a child, much more wholesome than a child coming out of a family that we term the ideal nuclear family.
Okay, I will say this though, but parenting takes a level of maturity. It doesn't matter how your age, it does matter your age, but you can be 20 and be mature enough to raise a child. The same way you can be 35, you can be 40, and not be so mature to raise a child. So it depends on the person's level of maturity, as we would have been mentioning throughout, the way that person would have been socialized.
So you need both the maturity of the mother and the maturity of the father.
Yes, you need, it takes a level of maturity. Yeah, it takes. I would say it takes a level of maturity.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if the father and the mother are not married, or they are not together in a relationship,
Maturity.
it is still important for each of them to play a part in the raising of that child. Now, Mr. Connor, sexual abuse of children.
Yeah.
We know that there are many issues where children are concerned, and some of them, have to do with, we hear in some countries about child labor. We hear about child trafficking. We hear about child prostitution. We hear about child pornography. We hear about all these things that are detrimental to the well-being of children or a child. Now, in St. Kitts and Nevis, in terms of the sexual abuse of children, there are some views that once it's 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime.
11:45, something like that.
Right. 11:45, or once, for example, a girl starts to get some breasts and get a bit curvaceous and so on, it is time. And not here, but we've heard about, child marriages and all that sort of a thing. So really and truly, children are threatened in terms of their well-being and their development. Can you enlighten us in terms of child sexual abuse in St. Kitts? Because it might be a subject that we don't like to discuss because of the sensitivities that are involved and so on. But let us not bury our heads in the sand and think that it is not happening.
And that is very important to discuss. And we have to be also mindful that when we speak about child sexual abuse, we're not just speaking about with the female, but we are also speaking about male. Because statistics have shown, and we have dealt with cases where young males have also been sexually abused. And this is where it comes around to the importance of reporting mechanisms, and having systems in place that actually work to ensure the safety and security of these children when we have these matters that are reported. And that is why we work closely with the Special Victims Unit, the Counseling Unit, and we try as much as possible to do wraparound services when it comes around to dealing with these matters, and ensuring that the persons or perpetrators are arrested and successfully prosecuted. And we have to be also careful of the fact that we have parents out there who and it's there that they actually, do certain things to abort, because some of these children actually get pregnant, and we have cases where parents have actually aborted These have done things to abort these children. And this is where we have to get serious with these things, because these are real issues.
You're speaking about the backyard abortion?
The backyard abortions. And it's very serious that we have to discuss these things and highlight these things and tell people that, look, you might have something, you might be concerned if whether or not is going to be come out that is you is the one who reported it. But you have a part to play in society. Everybody have a part to play in society. And that is why it comes back to the theme that we have, that protecting our children, in a sense, is a collective responsibility. It is no one single individual. It is not myself, it's not Mr. Maynard, yours, or whoever. It's everybody, collective responsibility to ensure that we do what we have to do. The Child Protection Act speaks about mandated reporting, and it outlines the way in which an investigation is supposed to take place when it comes around to these matters. And it comes down to, even if we have to remove that child from the situation and even bring charges against those parents to ensure that there is no interference in these matters, are very important. And we at the department do what we have to do. And personally say, oh, you remove a child and such and such. But we have to do what we have to do to ensure that these children are protected, because the system has to work for them. It is no if, no buts, no maybe. Because if the system does not work for them, then it makes no sense having a system. So we have to ensure that what we put in place works when it comes down to protecting these children. And is out there. For this year alone, we have had 48 reported cases of child sexual abuse. I'm not saying that all of them are true, but that is what we were made aware of. And I am sure you have more out there that persons need to come out and speak up about what's going on in our society. Persons need to report these cases, because at the end of the day, if we do not tackle these issues at hand, and it comes back to also how we socialize with our children, because this affects when parents are sexually abused when they're young. It comes out when they become adults and get children of their own.
What about parents that are, they may not call it that, but what they're involved in is basically the prostituting of their children. And why is it done? For a financial purpose. So therefore, they may know that their child is in a sexual relationship with an older man, with an adult. But of course, they are benefiting from the gains, the financial gains, and so therefore they say nothing about it. We cannot sweep this matter under the rug.
And it comes back to what we said, what I mentioned earlier. We now live in a time that are going to cause serious financial hardship and stress on a lot of these families. And based upon that, it might get worse. And we have to make sure that we put systems in place, we put reporting mechanisms in place, that as I said, you see something, say something. And that is very important. You know something, say something. You don't have to come up to the department and say, I need to talk to somebody and make a report. Make a call. Make a call. Go to a police. Go to a doctor. Go to a fire officer. Go to someone a police officer, someone who you trust that would be able to, hey, this is what I have to say. This is what is going on.
Do you think that parents should be in the same dance with their children at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Never. We have to be careful, because enforcing of laws is very, very important. And we have laws to deal with these things, such as, for example, you have the criminal Law Amendment Act, which speaks to a child of school-going age who should not be out after 10. And many of time you go to certain places and you see children on the road, you see videos on Facebook, you see pictures on Facebook where dances are going on and children are actually in there. And I remember, and I keep saying it, and this is why I am so passionate about certain things. A couple of years ago, we had a very brutal murder, very brutal situation that happened in St. Kitts where a child was found around behind the fisheries area. And it was alleged that she went to a dance. And we had a serious public outcry. But society need to understand that it does not have to take a situation like that to happen again for us to start making these things known. It should not take a situation where we say, oh, we need to do this and we need to do that. We should be saying that every day. We should be saying that every day. And proprietors need to take responsibility for allowing juveniles into their places. It is, and this is where we need to put the love of monies aside. Because they will say, well, most of the people who spend is the young people, is the children, the under 18s. But at the end of the day, you are basically leading society down a very dark road by exposing children to these things at such a young age.
Yes, and additionally being exposed to certain environments and being exposed to drugs and alcohol at an age where they're still children. Yes. The use of marijuana when they're still children, and alcohol, and how that really affects the development of the child, the education of the child, and all of that. We are dealing with some serious issues that really needs to be addressed. And we cannot pretend that these issues are not there. We are going to go to the phone lines and to hear from our listeners. The numbers to call are 466-2666. That is 466-2666, 662-8674, 662-8674, 767-4765, 767-4765, and our overseas number is 1-239-645-4500. That is 1-239-645-4500. We await your calls. Right. Now, dear, there are other issues that males in particular are dealing with. Last week I had on my program the Commissioner of Corrections, Mr. Terrence James, and in terms of antisocial behavior, getting involved in criminal activity, we seem to have more males involved in that who are in prison, but also we have male victims of violence, including sexual violence, and that boys face challenges at all stages of their education. Sometimes, you have very little men in the teaching profession, and all that they are seeing is women in the classroom. And so they might think that teaching is for women. And then, of course, the profession of nursing. I remember some call being made some time ago for more men, or men in St. Kitts and Nevis, to enter the nursing profession. Why they're not entering the nursing profession? Because there's a stereotype that nursing is for women. You see, so there are issues to be addressed, and then the negative portrayal of men and boys and fathers and so on. How is the Department of Gender Affairs dealing with that?
I thank you, Mr. Williams.
And men's health, you know, you have the whole thing, the prostate and so on. And of course, you know, the way to do the test, and some men decide they ain't doing it because of so and so and so, which would suggest some other issues.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Williams.
There's a call. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon, Leroy.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Mr. Connor.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Connor, keep your Leroy now. Can you jam me some question you can answer me?
I'm very much aware.
Okay, I'm glad. Now, let me start with the child. I think some of the child neglect started in the home, and that is mental. Because when you have a child, maybe 2-3 years, and they're running around, you know, some of the parents are excited and overexcited about their child. If they see the child going to touch the TV, they're going to say, no, come back, come, and the child will say, nah! And they leave it right here and then. That is abuse of the rights of the child. And then when the child go up in the kitchen, you think, well, no, go in here, go in. And they start to cry, and the mother says, no, okay, what you have. That is what the child wants. So you have to let the child know at an early age, you have to obey me. Because I ain't no way until we go to the street and you start to kick me in front of people and then I'm going to say, I can't go with you. Parents are supposed to go with child. Child is supposed to go with parents. And then in the school, you got to watch some of them people who call themselves teachers who start up in front of children and teaching them wrong. And doctoring them to brain with stupidness. Like to hear this color people and that color people. That is setting a bad thing in the children's mind. And the next thing I want to know, a lot of parents, they abuse man. Woman abuse man and man abuse woman. I remember one time, a woman was banging a man, and she cut him up and the neighbors called police, and the police come. The man said, leave her. I ain't gonna lock her because when me bang her in her come, they said she turn you. That was abuse. And then the mothers know when there's someone a father to support the children, and the children live with the father. How could they support a father to support the child when the child live with the father? The father ain't supposed to give the mother no money because she ain't got the child. The father is supposed to keep the money and look after the child. And the other way around, when the child live with the mother, and because the father now got another woman, they can have someone they say that he has support picnic. And I think when he do support picnic with the mother, he take the mother and go boy out fingernail long power beak and putting weave and wave and rough seal and all kind of thing she has. And the child ain't get nothing. When you pick them walk up on the street, dirty and nasty, and the father give the money. So all of that is abuse. And the people who are supposed to see about these things, when people make complaints, you know what they say, well, the mother ain't come, or the police can't get in the office because of this and that. No! You're supposed to look after the children, them. That's why the department there for, to protect them. Otherwise they will go astray, like you are saying, and get in a lot of things which are negative. Right. Thank you very much for listening.
Right, thank you for your viewpoint. Dion, we're talking.
Okay, so I don't know if Mr. Maynard want to address what they call it.
Yeah, but you go ahead and then
okay, so I basically what the colleague was saying, what the department is doing. We are in the words of my director, Celia Christopher, we are advocacy and awareness department. But we do some training, nevertheless, because we see there are some gaps. So we do go into the prison and do like health training, self-management health training, whatever they can do in the prison, we also do that in the community. In terms of male underachievement, that is a big problem. It stems. We really have like different things that affect male underachievement. I can say that like we have an issue with marijuana in the secondary schools, or even down in the primary schools as well, where it is a big issue. It's prevalent in the secondary schools where males are smoking behind the schools, and when I go to a school, that's what the normal time is the major problem. It's not the violence anymore, but it's the smoking and the marijuana. That is the major issue in the school. It could be poverty as well, that they're underachieving, you know, so some may try to hustle, you know, at a very young age, you know, where they should be learning in school and so on. It can also be the absence of more mothers in the school, in the sense of teachers, you know, and persons are saying that the teaching profession is now feminized. It could be that they're searching for love somewhere else, you know. They're not seeking it at home, and so there's a number of issues, you know, that are affecting men, and what we are seeing now, boys are being exploited for sex, you know. We see boys who want the nice name brand shoes and the name brand clothes, and they ask a man, you know, who they look up to, and the man might say, "Come on, I don't know how to do it, you know," but they groom the boys to have sex with them in exchange for money, and we are seeing that.
So sometimes it is not always exploitation, but a conscious choice to be involved in prostitution, just like women will be.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that men face you know, a barrage of issues. You know, it takes all of us working together. You know, we can work on the women issues as well as we can work on the men issues. We can strike a balance in terms. Empowering women should not mean disempowering men. So if we have a training for women, we should have training for men as well. The way we treat our girls as if they are precious, they keep them home, we should also treat our boys as if they are precious and they are valued, you know, not let them run wild and, you know, as they can do as they want, and so you know, it takes parents to take responsibility for the male child and the female child.
Yes, we used to have this saying once ago, you know, you buy the heifer and you lose the bull.
Yeah.
But nowadays it looks as though not even heifer and bull tie. Everybody lose.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So, but I wanted to go to a point that you raised with the mother and the child in the dance at 2 a.m. I would go as far as say the mother has no cause in a dance 2 a.m. They should be home with their children.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Connor, the caller